So you're interested in starting a worm compost bin. Worm composting or vermicomposting is a great way to reduce your food waste and create compost that you can use as a soil amendment or fertilizer for your plants. To make your own basic worm bin, you're going to need 2 plastic storage totes. One is an approximately 14-gallon size. The other is a shallow bin, but large enough that the large bin can nestle inside it. Use bricks or blocks of wood or something for the large bin to rest on, creating a space for air to circulate around the bottom of the worm bin. You'll also need shredded newspaper, or you can use coconut coir for the bedding. You'll need the worms, of course. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then water. A spray bottle to help keep the bedding moist. To get started, you'll first want to drill holes around the top of the bin and in the bottom to create circulation, air circulation. Then you're going to label the 4 corners with a marker of like 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to fill the bin 2/3 full with your choice of bedding. And in our case, we're using shredded newspaper. You'll want to wet the bedding. It needs to be very wet, but not dripping. It should be like the laundry that you get out of the washing machine. Red wigglers are the type of worms used for composting. We purchased ours from a regional source and they came in the mail. About 2 days prior to adding the worms to the bin, prepare your bedding, make sure it's good and wet, and add a little bit of food to one corner and cover it lightly with the bedding. So now it's time to add your worms. You're going to moisten the top of the bedding, then sprinkle the red wigglers over the top. Then give it a little spray because you want to make sure that the worms are nice and have a nice moist area. And then cover. So after being placed in the bin, the worms are going to get much more active. So you want to keep an eye on them for the first 12 hours or so and make sure they have enough moisture. If it's too dry, they're going to try and escape. If they try to escape or you see them coming up, trying to crawl out of the bin, just scoop them back into the bed and make sure that you have enough water in the bedding. So what can you feed your worms? You can use anything that you would normally put in your traditional compost pile, such as vegetables, crushed eggshells, tea bags, or coffee grounds. You want to avoid citrus and definitely avoid meat, dairy products, and oil. Okay, there are basically 3 things to remember for keeping your worms happy. They need food, like we've just discussed. They need moisture, very important. And they need the bedding. As I mentioned earlier, the bedding needs to be fluffy, but wet. So worms typically consume about 1/4 of their weight in food scraps per day. So if you have a pound of worms, you'd put about 1/4 pound of food. And you don't want to place more food in until you see that the prior feeding has been consumed. If you recall, I had you mark the corners of the bin, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we use this system with the dowels to mark where we fed last, just to help us keep it organized. So I'll show you here the last time we placed food in the bin, we used in corner 4. So I will remove the marker for number 4, and we're going to place food now in the next corner, which will be number 1. But we'll want to make sure that the food is gone before we place more food in the bin. Okay, so we're going to go to corner number 1, pull up a little bit of bedding, put the food scraps in, and cover it again with a little bit of water, and then replace the bedding. Once you've sprayed the top of the bedding, you want to put a little bit of fresh, dry bedding over the top. That helps keep the moisture in and the worms down, buried into the bedding. Now you'll place the appropriate dowel, marking the corner where you have placed the food, and just kind of straighten everything up, and that's done. So you will place the lid on and keep your bin someplace cool and fairly dark. You're welcome to stop by the Canton Library anytime to see our worm bin in action. And if you want more information about vermicomposting, check out some of the book resources that we have available through the Haywood County Public Library. Thank you very much.